controversial BLM co-founder doled out $8 million of group's money for Canadian mansion. I mean, they aren't doing anything for the black community. Only thing they're doing is buying up all these mansions. It seems like every time we look further and further into their financial situation, mansions are popping up everywhere. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this out so we can get this important information out there. Also, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here. And there's also a link to my merch store where I have Let's Go Brandon t-shirts, I Will Not Comply t-shirts, and there's also a link to my mental health coaching and consultation page, whereas if you're suffering from any type of mental health, I can teach you how to cope with that issues. I teach you coping skills and how to manage it. All right, so let's talk about this news. The National Black Lives Matter group granted $8 million to BLM Canada to purchase a mansion in Toronto that only cost $6.3 million, according to audited financial statements obtained by the Washington Examiner. So they paid well over what the house is actually worth. So I wonder whose friend it was, or who she knows that owned that building, or made the deal for that. I mean, this is basically money laundering. This is how you launder money. They're doing it through purchasing these $1 million mansions way over what it costs. But BLM co-founder Patrice Cullors was the sole board member of BLM Global Network Foundation when it granted the funds to BLM Canada, the records show. Cullors' spouse, Janaea Khan, served on the board of BLM Canada when the transfer was made. Quote, I have never witnessed a lack of governance on a scale in my nearly 20 years as a charity watchdog, Charity Watch Executive Director Lori Styron told the Washington Examiner. Curiously, BLM Canada disclosed in a recent report that it only requested $5 million from the National BLM group to subsidize its cash purchase of the Wild Seed Center in downtown Toronto. BLM Canada purchased the property outright in July 2021 for $8.1 million, 8.1 million Canadian dollars, I should say, or the equivalent of 6.3 million, according to records previously reported by the Washington Examiner. Quote, this amount covered a majority of costs for the building purchase and included preliminary restricted funds, and were put towards renovation costs, BLM Canada reported. Quote, included in the proposal were the following spatial priorities: archiving materials, organizing spaces, educational spaces, meeting rooms, co-working spaces, studio performance and creation space, office space, and gardening space. Our funding request was accepted within the month, BLM Canada added. It's not clear why the National BLM Group, while under Cullors' control, ultimately provided $3 million more to BLM Canada than what it had initially requested for the property purchase. Neither group responded to requests for comment. BLM alluded to Cullors' relationship with Khan in a section of its audited financial statements that disclosed his grant to BLM Canada. Quote, a related party to the executive director of BLMG and F was a board member of the M4BJ operating as Black Lives Matter Canada, which was granted $8 million during the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021, BLM reported in its financial statements, which covered the time frame between July 1st, 2020 and June 30th, 2021. Khan, who married Cullors in 2016, told the New York Magazine in April that she separated from Cullors in September 2017 and left the National BLM group shortly afterward. Khan remains listed as a director of BLM Canada, according to Canadian charity records. Quote, a grant from a charity U.S. entity to its Canadian one isn't in and of itself a suspicious transaction, Styron of Charity Watch said. Quote, the concern here is that this transaction occurred in a financial reporting year in which the charity reports having only one member of its governing body. And that member just so happens to have made an $8 million financial decision involving a related party with no independent oversight of this transaction. I mean, you would think if you're giving someone $8 million, it would be some type of oversight. So I understand what she's saying there. But Styron said Colors should have recused herself from any BLM's financial decisions that involve related parties such as BLM Canada. However, she noted it's unclear how Colors could have recused herself from such matters when she was the only member of BLM's board at the time. That's just crazy. BLM also reported in its recent Form 990 that it held no board meetings between July 1st, 2020 and June 30th, 2021. The National BLM Group funded BLM Canada mansion in Toronto about a half a year after it secretly purchased its own mansion in Los Angeles in October 2020 for $6 million. In addition to fronting cash for the purchase of multiple mansions across North America, the National BLM group also doled out lucrative contracts and payments to others close family and friends of Colors. At the same time, the charity collected $90 million, a $90 million windfall following the police killing of George Floyd. And I did a whole video on that. Damon Turner, the father of Colors' only child, raked in $969,459. I'm sorry, $969,459 from embattled charity through his art firm, Trade Hills, according to BLM Form 990 disclosure. An LLC run by Colors' brother, Paul Colors, received $840,993 for, quote, professional security services. Paul Colors is known mostly to have worked as a graffiti artist prior to launching his security firm in July 2020, according to the New York Post. So how do you go from graffiti to security all of a sudden? That's just wild. But BLM board member Shamaya Bauer told reporters during a call Thursday that the charity continues to pay for Paul Colors' security services. Quote, he still does currently serve as the organization head of security. The concept of having people you know and trust and have done work with in the past as employees or vendors and consultants within an organization or just on your team is not new, Bauer said. See, she's being defensive. Bowers himself is a close associate of Colors. BLM paid his company $2,167,894 for consultant and management services, the charity reported in its Form 990. New Impact Partners, an LLC run by the sister of BLM Operations Director Raymond Howard, received $107,000 for fundraising services. Quote, from top to bottom, the BLM audit financials shows the organization has been hamstrung by a slew of related party transactions that scream self-dealing. Tom Anderson, the director of the Government Integrity Project at the National Legal and Policy Center Watchdog Group, told the Washington Examiner, quote, this explains why they're in so much disarray and chaos. I mean, who's heading this ship? Who is allowing all this stuff to happen? I mean, this is obvious corruption here, obvious money laundering here, and giving money to friends and family. That's exactly what's going on here. Colors resigned as BLM executive director in May 2021 amid criticism of her personal real estate purchases. She recently caught flack for saying she get triggered when she hears about charity financial disclosure laws. That's because she gets triggered because she knows that she what she was doing is illegal. But quote, this doesn't seem safe for us, this 990 structure, this non-profit system structure, Colors said in April. This is like deeply unsafe. This is being literally weaponized against us, against the people we work with. No, it's not. If you're abiding by the law, then you have nothing to worry about. You taking other people's money, and the money should be accounted for. Styron said BLM's loose management of its 2020 financial windfalls risks harming the public's trust in the charity sector as a whole. Quote, a charity is not a one-woman show, Styron said. Quote, this is taxpayer subsidized public money. The public can lose trust in the nonprofit sector on a whole when they see behavior like this. And I agree. And she goes on to say that when they see hundreds of thousands of dollars being paid to a company owned by the executive director's sibling, or millions spent on residential style homes with questionable justification, or a decision overseen by one person to transfer $8 million outside of the country for a capital purchase with an inadequate public accounting of how these funds are really used. And that is well said. There's no accounting for, you're getting on these tax breaks, you're getting people's money. People want to know that their money is going towards what you say is going towards. And when it comes to BLM, that's not happening. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, and check out demarcopublics.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.